Hello, everybody. I'm David Cade, AHLA CEO. I have the distinct honor to welcome and congratulate AHLA's 2021 Fellows class. This is a highly talented class of exceptional individuals. Their bios are included so that you can review their many accomplishments. The nominating criteria for an AHLA Fellow require that they are current and active member of AHLA for 15 or more years, actively practicing for 15 or more years. They are regarded as one of the top healthcare lawyers or professionals in the community and have a commitment to AHLA through participation and support, including speaking, writing, mentoring, and serving in leadership positions. This year's class includes 7 exceptional individuals: Elisabeth Belmont, who is not able to join us today, John Holdenried, Bill Horton, Charlene McGinty, Kristen Rosati, Paul Shaw, and Lisa Taylor. Congratulations to you all. You all have always supported AHLA, and today, as a way to give back just a little more, I have a few questions for you. Lisa, we'll start with you. The theme of Health Law Week was strength through adversity. Can you share how you or your organization has shown strength through adversity this past year?
Well, thank you, David. And this is really a great honor. And I really, anyway, thank you very much. And congratulations to the other fellows. I think the last year has really shown that there are new ways of working. There are new ways of providing services. People were forced to be flexible and adapt. And it's interesting because leading up to the pandemic, there was so much about, in the media about this being a disruptor or that being a disruptor. But certainly we never saw that in terms of making real change in a lot of different ways, that the pandemic would be. And certainly there were horrible, horrible things, so many deaths, so many people who are still suffering physically and in many, many other ways. But perhaps it will ultimately lead to new opportunities for providing, new opportunities in terms of health, life, and certainly an appreciation, certainly for personal connections, which was something that was certainly lost over the last year.
Thank you, Lisa. You are so right. The personal connections that we've lost. And I'm hoping that as we get out of the cloud, we will get back to that. Bill, Monday's focus area was leading with inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility strategies, or as we say, IDEA or IDEA strategies. How do you champion inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility in your practice?
David, first, I want to echo what Lisa said. This is just a tremendous honor looking at this group and looking at all the previous classes of fellows. I feel like I've slipped in by mistake, but this is a tremendous honor and I appreciate the chance to speak with you all today. One of the things I think that we are trying to do in our practice, that I am trying to do, is do something that's a little bit hard for law firms. I think law firms have historically sort of looked at diversity as kind of a numbers game. How do we fill out the questionnaires? How do we show, how many people we have of differing backgrounds? How many people we have of differing genders, differing sexual orientations? And kind of that's it. And I think one of the things that we've come to understand and that we're really trying to focus on, and that is kind of a pet hobby horse of mine, if you will, is recognizing that diversity by itself is not enough, that equity and inclusion are important, and that what we have to do there is get away from the idea that everyone's experience is the same, that everyone's motivators are the same, that everyone's perceptions on life are the same. I had a conversation several months ago with a young African-American lawyer who said, gee, it's really nice after the George Floyd tragedy, the firm put out a nice public statement and put it on social media, but nobody called me to see if I was doing okay. Nobody called to see how this had affected me. And I was like, that is a really good point, and not one that had occurred to me, even though I have a transracial family. So I think what we're trying to do, and I'm on our firm's diversity committee and trying to play a role in this, is really try to rethink what diversity, equity, and inclusion means, to look at it in a more holistic way, not just a headcount way, but in a way of recognizing that we all come from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, that we don't experience the practice of law the same way, we don't experience the practice of life the same way, and to really try to make ourselves more conscious of how we nurture those differences and serve the diverse members of our firm and our diverse clients.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I think it's very important, as you shared, for us to celebrate inclusion and the value that each of us bring to any situation. So thank you again. John, Tuesday's focus area was all about self-care. What self-care techniques have helped you through the pandemic?
Thanks, David. And I want to echo the other comments that I'm very honored to be elected as a fellow. It's one of my career highlights. And so I thank the association for that. I would say, first of all, that this last year I had the, I don't know whether it's misfortune or whatever, but I was also the board chair of a nonprofit assisted living facility that went through all of the issues with COVID, the isolation and the quarantine and many illnesses. And so there was some tough times dealing with all of that. So self-care, I, like many of you, watched Joe Exotic chase after Carol Baskin on the Netflix series. And that was a great diversion, but I don't think a very good self-care sort of thing. I'd really put the self-care into 4 categories. One was kind of staying connected with family. For the first few months, our young grandchildren, their daycare was closed. And so my wife sort of took responsibility for them, and I participated in, to some degree when I wasn't working anyway, helping with that. Found an app that I never knew existed to be able to read stories to the other grandkids from out of town. And so that was very helpful. Similarly, developed new ways to interact with friends that I really, frankly, had never heard of Zoom before. I organized this kind of every other week thing with several friends where we'd get together, and that kind of got expanded into siblings and families and others. Third thing was really exercise. I used to go to a gym regularly. That gym closed, and it's still closed, not anymore because of the pandemic, because it just kind of lost business and they ended up closing. So trying to stay healthy through all of this, and discovered that walking is a great exercise I hadn't really done much of before, and also discovered I could, there were all sorts of new apps that you could exercise with in your basement if you were creative about it. And then finally, I'd say that it helped me and my wife to sort of connect in a deeper way. We had a lot of takeout at home sort of dinners, and turned out that those could be done pretty well. And it was a good chance to kind of reconnect without kind of all the social sort of issues that otherwise go along with things. And so it was a great way to reconnect with her.
That's great, John. Thank you. Thank you. And I pick up on a theme of connectedness from Lisa to Bill, inclusion, and the value that we put on ourselves to put ourselves first. I think so many and maybe it's the nature of the profession, we are wired and learned to take care of others before we take care of ourselves. And so I appreciate the tips that you've offered, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue the self-care as an association and as individuals as we get out of the cloud of COVID. Charlene, what role does the health law professional have in combating racial disparities in healthcare?
Let me start also. Thank you so much for AHLA for the honor of being elected as a fellow, and to come in with this spectacular group of people makes it even more special. So thanks again for that. With respect to what healthcare professionals or what health law professionals can do, I sort of see it as three-pronged, sort of a client-focused, obviously, because we all are client-focused, individual-focused, but also, and then also community-focused. From a client standpoint, we work with our clients all the time in setting up programs, community-based programs that are designed to, give access and education to populations and, with certain diseases and things like that, and targeted diseases. A lot of these programs are set up under the population health umbrella, and looking at ways to get that education out to folks and that can help serve those either uninsured, underinsured, or indigent care populations, and just getting the message out as that here's the programs that are available within the community to help within a certain, defined population or certain defined disease population. Also, I think, secondly, as I said, looking at it from sort of an individual focused standpoint, you can work within your communities as advocates for those folks who are in need. A lot of that is through your legal aid society, through your state bar programs. So there's a lot of opportunities to be able to go out and do those kinds of things to be able to help the community, but more on an individual focused standpoint. And then from, the third prong is really from what I consider a community focused, in the sense of you work through organizations, great organizations like AHLA, where you're able to share ideas and work through potential projects across a lot of different platforms. So I think those, looking at it from that standpoint, those are all ways that you can, as a health law professional, give back to your community, being able to help work through issues that have been identified during the pandemic.
Great, thank you, Charlene. I like how you set up the role that we play at AHLA, and in fact, we have a hub on the website where folks can get resources and information to help them prepare to be advocates and to be able to work with clients and colleagues and in the community. So thank you very much, Charlene. Paul, can you tell us a little about your favorite mentor? Why were they so impactful in your professional life?
So I'd have to go back, David. Well, before I begin, I want to echo what everybody else has said, and it truly is an honor to be elected to be a fellow of the AHLA, and I thank the association from the bottom of my heart. As far as mentors, I go back to 1988 when I was first a member of the NHLA, and the incomparable Len Holm from Oberkaler took an interest in this little criminal defense lawyer in a three-person firm from Boston, and had me present on statistical sampling at the Medicare and Medicaid conference in Baltimore, where I was so overwhelmed by acronyms, and the incomparable Alice Gosfield, who could run through all those acronyms in 30 seconds or less. But the real mentor who sponsored me through my early years of the AHLA was Jim Sheehan. I met Jim at an NHLA fraud and abuse seminar in Baltimore in the early 1980s, when Jim was an assistant U.S. attorney at the U.S. Attorney's Philadelphia U.S. Attorney's Office. And for those who may remember, Jim was really at the cutting edge of bringing False Claims Act enforcement actions following the revision of the False Claims Act in 1986. So similar to Len Homer, Jim took an interest in me and asked that I give a presentation for the Fraud and Compliance Forum in approximately 1995 and 1996. And from that one seminar, Jim continued to promote me, both in putting me on panels at that annual fraud conference, as well as at the annual meetings where I presented several times. And it was also Jim who suggested in 1998 that my then partner, Bob Griffith, and I author a handbook on fraud and abuse investigations for the healthcare industry. So I like to say that it was really as a direct result of Jim's mentoring and sponsoring me that I became very, very involved with first the NHLA and then subsequently with the AHLA.
Great, thank you, Paul. And you've listed a bunch of giants, Len, Alice, and Jim, all tremendous in the field. And for those watching and listening, of that mix of the government sector and the private sector, that level of collaboration, I think, is one of the things that makes AHLA unique and allows us to sort of diversify how we share information and how we collaborate within the health law area. So thank you again, Paul. Kristen, what does becoming an AHLA fellow mean to you?
Well, you certainly gave me the easy question, didn't you? Like everybody has said, it is just a huge honor to be a part of this really accomplished group of healthcare attorneys who have been committed to AHLA for so many years. So I think that's probably what it means to all of us. And I think even more significantly, as a past leader of AHLA, it gives me an opportunity to remain involved in AHLA and continue to contribute to this wonderful, collegial, productive community that we've all created. So I'm just delighted to be here. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kristen. And as you said, and as the others who are part of the 2021 Fellows class have said, yes, it's an honor, and you are all very well deserved. So I congratulate you all. I'm looking forward to having you, continue to be involved in the life of AHLA. And so for now, I'll just end by saying thank you and congratulations.